I'm going to take you on a little educational trip to Scotland now, where I think we might learn a thing or two about refugees, asylum seekers and illegal immigrants. The SNP have been in power in Scotland for a very long time. Nicola Sturgeon said plans to deport illegal immigrants were disgraceful.
Let's be clear, the UK Government's illegal migration bill sets out a clear intention to remove the right to seek refugee protection in the United Kingdom. It is utterly shameful and immoral.
The SNP website urged Britain to take its fair share of refugees and asylum seekers. Humza Yousaf called the Rwanda plan morally repugnant and that it should be scrapped. In fact, Humza Yousaf wanted to go one step further and house Gazan refugees in Scotland.
The UK, right across the UK, many people in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland open their hearts, open their homes to refugees from Ukraine, from refugees from Syria. We're a generous country. Well, let's show that generosity of spirit again for those that need to leave, that don't have a home. Let's say that the UK, let's say that Scotland will be a place of sanctuary for them, as we have shown that kindness and compassion for others.
The SNP even wanted to introduce free bus passes for asylum seekers. As of July 2024, there were around 213 asylum hotels in Scotland, supposedly. The fair people of Glasgow took to the streets to physically prevent the deportation of people suspected of committing immigration offences, and the police backed down. Well done to all of the refugees welcome protesters in Glasgow. Amazing work. Really, really good stuff. Now, let's check in and see how Glasgow is getting on today, shall we? 4,000 asylum seekers descended on Glasgow, and now the council says we can't take any more. The city is crumbling under the weight of the asylum seekers. It's damaging social cohesion. It's caused a housing crisis. The situation is, quote, utterly untenable. They've got homeless migrants just wandering the streets. They're planning on turning a care home into a base for refugees. An asylum seeker was shot dead by police after stabbing 6 people at a hotel. Elsewhere in Scotland, a failed asylum seeker raped a schoolgirl near a pub. There's nowhere for Scotland's own homeless to live. They're being put up in temporary accommodation, or they are just languishing out in the streets. And now, the council in Glasgow wants the government to, you ready for this? Pause sending asylum seekers to Glasgow. Well, hang on a minute. The rest of the country wants that, don't they? The rest of us, we want a pause. So when they want it in Glasgow, OK, it's because they're overwhelmed. When we want it down here, it's because we're all racist bigots. You reap what you sow, I'm afraid. This is today's lesson, I feel. If you keep banging on about refugees and asylum seekers and saying that they're all welcome, then don't cry about it when your town or city is absolutely flooded with them and your life starts becoming unbearable. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. Former Tory Conservative MP Anna Firth, Tory peer, Lord Bailey and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Torbet. And a lesson for us all there, I think, from Glasgow.
Well, if you make your bed, you have to lie in it, don't you? And the SNP have lauded it over the rest of us, taken this moral, superior attitude. That clip that you showed us, Patrick, of the 2 illegal asylum seekers actually being released, SNP ministers actually said after that how that was the right thing to happen and how people who are here illegally should not be removed. So I'm sorry, I've got absolutely no sympathy. Don't be surprised then when you get hordes coming your way. There's 2 problems that they've got. One, they've had this ridiculous welcoming attitude towards asylum seekers. But the other thing is they've boasted about world-leading homelessness policies. They've boasted about that. They've taken away the priority test that a decade ago, that we have here quite rightly and sensibly in England. So they've had 2 pull factors. Now, of course, they don't like it. Well, I'm sorry, it's completely their own fault.
Well, what would your view on this be, Sean? I mean, the SNP, as we've seen, they're very vocal about everyone doing their bit for the world's refugee crisis and all of that. Well, they've had a bit of it now. They don't like it. What should we do about it?
I think there's two things to say. Firstly is politicians who virtue signal. You saw Hamza Yusuf arrested at virtue signalling peace. People should remember that, and he should be presented with what he would do now facing this problem. And the other more substantive piece is we need to be able to have a conversation about immigration, about seeking asylum, without everybody being accused of being racist. Because the problem they're in now, they've pointed a lot of fingers accusing people of being racist. Are they now a bunch of racists? What has changed? And the deeper problem is, we talk about pull and push factors. Here they're suffering from a push factor because we all are having to deal with a number of people seeking immigration changes for themselves, which means the government will probably say you haven't received any more than anybody else relative to your size.
They haven't.
Yeah, that's the point.
Hang on,
it means for a long time they had less.
It means as well. Hold on, one last thing. It means the government cannot stop, because if you're South End, Carmarthen in Wales, if you continue to receive, you will say they should continue to receive.
But Sean, just quickly before obviously we go to Matthew, remember in 2000 the Glasgow Council actually volunteered to be part of the asylum dispersal programme.
Well,
they wanted these people to come.
Yeah, well, Matthew, what would your view on this be? Because they're going to have to... I mean, I think it's a bit rich, isn't it, really, for Glasgow now to say, look, we need a pause, we've got a housing crisis, there's damaging social cohesion, but presumably they're fine for that to happen everywhere else.
Well, yeah, most people probably would be until it's on their doorstep. I think with stuff like this, I, feel I'm a very liberal and tolerant person. I believe in the strong helping the weak, and I believe in the moral cause of helping those who are genuinely fleeing persecution. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong in principle with welcoming refugees. I think the issue for many people, and where I think the law potentially needs to change, is how many are refugees and how many are economic migrants. So I think at the moment, 2/3 of Glasgow's available housing is taken up by potential asylum seekers. The problem with this is the 1951 convention that we signed up to through the UN many, many years ago says the only legal way, the only way you can present yourself as a potential asylum seeker is to land on UK shores. So I think politically for the Labour Party, this is a headache, as it was for the Conservatives, seeing people cross the channel and people flicking on the TV, getting frustrated at feeling like they're at the back of the queue potentially. And I think this is the problem. What you need to do politically, morally, and I think logically, is change the laws so that you can process in third countries, whether that be France, pinch points like Turkey, close to Syria, and places where people are fleeing. And therefore, you don't have people throwing their passports in the channel and the crossings continue. And just to finish, the reason, if you don't do this, there is the danger of even liberal people like me feeling like there is a breakdown in social cohesion.
Let's be very clear, Matthew is correct. But the problem the Labour Party had, when the Conservatives tried to do that, they were accused of being racist. They had a system of Rwanda. I had to vote for it in House. It wasn't perfect. My Labour colleagues did their best to sort of focus the situation, but the Labour Party and many people on the left said that the Conservatives were racist. Now, what are they going to do? Unless we have a system that filters out asylum seekers from economic migrants, we will never get past this problem.
But I would go further than that. I mean, you are right, Matthew, but that the problem that you've highlighted there was exactly what the Illegal Migration Act was designed to deal with. Under that Act, if anyone arrived on our shores illegally, just arrived on our shores without papers, without going through the proper process, then the government had a duty to remove them. But the Labour Party voted against that, and they've now repealed all those clauses.
So I think that there is possibly a better way of doing this than what Rwanda would have done as such. And I think the reason being... No, and this is where actually I think it could be moulded to be better, and I think policy can always be designed better. There is no reason why, if we were to change the current law as it is from the 51 Convention, that it doesn't have to be a third country necessarily. If you were fleeing persecution genuinely from your own country, why are we not allowing people to agree for asylum in the British Embassy in that country?
That won't work on two counts. One, those people people are already here in their tens of thousands.
Yep.
So it'd be a very different look because we don't have paperwork, so we don't know where they came from. And number two, ECHR.
Yeah.
That will prevent British law from dealing with them.
But we've got case studies now. We've got case studies like Glasgow. This is exactly what happens. Now, people didn't seem to mind about it too much when it was northern towns. Parts of the northwest of England especially, treated like dumping grounds. People can look around parts of London and it can get swallowed up quite easily in a massive city like London. But then when you see happening in Glasgow there, and that's the case, I'll be honest with you, a part of me feels as though every single constituency that has voted for an MP that has said the kind of things like the SNP have been parroting, like Labour MPs who voted against every single bit of immigration legislation recently, they should all be made to take all of the illegal migrants. And if you live in a constituency where you voted against that stuff, why should you have to suffer? You know, in Glasgow, I'm sorry to the people of Scotland. I'm sure there are loads of people in Glasgow who really don't like this now and will think what I'm about to say is really unfair. And I feel for you. But the only other alternative is to vote out the people who've been ramming this down your throats, isn't it?
Absolutely. But it's a tiny bit rich, Matthew, to say that we can design different laws because the Conservatives, through the Illegal Migration Act, were finally dealing with the problem. We have to have... And the reason we've had record numbers crossing, record numbers since the general election is because they got rid of the three things we need. One, the big ticket deterrent. Now, not everyone likes
But it was already... I'm just going to come in here, because it was already knackered under the Tories. You know, the big problem for me with the Conservatives was that the clue should be in the name, conserve something. And you guys let it get to a problem where it was so awful that then radical change needed to happen.
I'm not disagreeing with that, Patrick, but we were actually tackling it. And I spent a lot of time on the Illegal Migration Act when I was in Parliament. The big ticket deterrent was needed and it was working. We could see it was working and it's been taken away. We stopped the automatic path to citizenship in the Illegal Migration Act. And number three, and very important, we stopped the repeated appeals system. You could have only one, and the Labour Party got rid of it all.
Very quickly, Matthew.
Very quickly, the only thing I would disagree on with the fact that it would solve the problem is I don't think it would. The forced removal of people is one thing. What I would like to see is the idea that they can get here already. It's the prevention of the economic migrants.
On the cards at the minute.
Okay. No, it should be.
Couldn't agree more.
We're going to watch places like Glasgow with bated breath. I'm very sorry that it's come to that for the people of Glasgow. Some people could have seen that coming a mile off, to be perfectly honest with you. And, you know, maybe people are going to regret the idea of calling everyone a racist who wants to do something about it, because now when you can't get housing, you can't get access to your public services, crime's gone up, you've got people lining the street in tents, and you think, well, hang on a minute, the care homes are now a migrant hotel. You know, maybe people will wish they did something about